Greetings and salutations. Hello, everybody. How we doing out there today? Yep. What a week. What a week. I would like to begin this cast, and I'm going to keep mentioning this over and over again. I think every single person, the true Democratic North, good to see you, my man. Peanut Butter Beatrice, yeah, hanging on by a thread, aren't we all? So, speaking of this very thing, I think every single person should go to a website called oddbunch.ca. It is a produce delivery service. For $23, they gave me a box of produce that I have now taken and made a split pea soup out of. I added a couple of extra things other than the produce box they gave me. So it ended up being maybe $30, and it's going to feed me for at least the week. I can see how this is going to drop my food bill. It's going to cut my food bill in half, probably. Yeah, if I let it. If I stop buying ancillary nonsense stuff. You know how it is. But for sure, the amount of produce you get versus the cost of it, what's very, very clearly going on is that there's finally a group of people or an organization that has gone to farmers and is like, hey, you throw away 40% of your food, right? Yep, certainly do. Throw away 40% of our food because we live in a capitalist society and it makes sense to throw away 40% of the food. How about you sell us some of that food at a reduced rate because you're going to toss it anyway. And then we'll turn around and deliver it to people. Yeah, okay. And so they're undercutting the grocery stores and they're able to deliver it straight to your door. And of course, they're undercutting the grocery stores because the grocery stores are gouging you. Just nakedly, openly, very much flaunting it right in front of your face. Like, oh wow, inflation has gotten so crazy. By the way, our profits have never been higher. They're obviously stealing from you very clearly. And so a group of people have popped up and just been like, hey, how about we sell you this produce at a reasonable rate, and get rid of all that inflation nonsense. So as long as you're okay with not necessarily having a choice of what comes into the box, my solution is just throw it all into a pot, make a stew out of it, make a soup out of it. Because who gives a shit, right? Just throw it all in there. Season it how you like, whatever. And if you're fine with that dynamic, you can cut your food bill in half. Or more specifically, you can put your food bill back to where it should be in the first place. Oddbunch.ca. If I could get paid to promote them, I would. But I'll promote them for free because I think that everybody needs to know how to save money. Everybody needs to know how to undercut these psychopathic, narcissistic child rapists as best they can. And oddbunch.ca is doing it. And I think the best part about it is they just deliver it to your door. Literally, this Wednesday, I opened up my door, there it was. I threw it all into a pot. I've made my food for the week. I mean, I don't know what you want. Yeah. Eggs D, good to see you. Conton, good to see you. Austin, good to see you. How's it going, comrade? You know what, man? This week has been a week. It's been up and down and all around, and I just, it feels like the energy in the world is very and everybody's simultaneously as low energy as it gets, as well as extremely frantic. Both of those things are happening simultaneously. There's a lethargic franticness, a frantic lethargy, if that makes any sense at all. Just everybody is in this kind of bewildered state. Largely, in my view, because did you guys hear? Have you heard the news that that there's a war going on? Have you heard the news that there's a war going on? I don't. It's being so underreported, and nobody knows anything about it. This is a moment where the Empire is just showing its full ass at you. It's just showing its full ass at you, and it's just like, yeah, we're just a bunch of psychopathic mass murderers. We don't give a fuck. We don't care. We're also just like dimwits of the highest order. Like I don't think they could do much to show you that these people are stupider than this. Right? Peanut Butter Beatrice, yeah. Depends how you define war, apparently. Yeah, if this isn't a war, then war doesn't exist. Like this is a full-scale war. My favorite part about this conflict, and what really shows you how detached from reality Westerners have become, especially the ruling class, is they went in there and murdered essentially the Muslim Pope, right? The Ayatollah Khomeini, made a martyr out of him, killed him, his granddaughter, his wife, in a strike that just basically like blew up an apartment building and killed like 60 people. While also like bombing school children, and now the United States. This is so cute, like it's so adorable. Is that after they murdered the Ayatollah, the next Ayatollah that gets selected is literally his son, right? So you killed the current Ayatollah's father, his daughter, his mother, and now you have the absolute audacity, the absolute caucasity to be like, why won't they accept a ceasefire? What, they don't accept the they're not acting rationally. Like, we are led by very obvious, very clear, like in a very like 1 + 1 = 2, right in front of your face, narcissistic, psychopathic morons. Like, just the stupidest people to have ever lived. The idea that you are going to kill the Ayatollah and receive a response somehow different than the response that you've gotten. What are you talking about? Yeah, there were 2 interim Ayatollahs before him that we wore head to foot. Yeah, I mean, like, we're not intelligent. Like, we're not smart. And we just keep doing it. And maybe we'll get this guy too. But the idea that the Iranians are suddenly going to, like, pack it up. Oh, we've been defeated, everybody. Like, the Iranians know exactly what Israel's plan is for them. The Iranians know exactly what capitulation means to Israel, right? Look at Gaza. That's what capitulating to Israel looks like, right? This is one of the most basic, fundamental aspects of fighting a war that we learned in World War I and World War II, is that when you take prisoners of war and when you take territory, you treat the people who you take with decency. And the reason why you treat them with decency is because when you're fighting them on the battlefield, you want them to feel like, well, if we surrender, then we go get to sleep in a warm bed and have a cup of coffee, right? Like, well, the fighting will be over and they'll take us to some, a prison, some holding center or whatever, and, and we'll get a cup of tea and be like, and lick our wounds. But if you convince the enemy that if they defeat you, they will torture you and murder your family and rape your children, then they will fight to the last possible breath. And that's essentially where the Iranians are now. That they know for a fact, they've seen it. We've all seen Gaza. Like, we all know what happened there. And they've been convinced. I mean, I'm sorry, they haven't been convinced. They have eyes and a brain and the ability to perceive reality appropriately. That surrendering to America or Israel means turning into Gaza. And so they're never going to give up, ever. They will fight to the last Iranian. Because they would prefer that over what Israel has in store for them. And so the Iranians, with that spirit, as well as with the mystical power of planning. This is another thing that Americans are just like, what? How are they able to foresee things and then execute on things? It's because they have a magical ability that Americans simply don't have called planning. You see, what Iranians, as well as most of the rest of the world, do is they look at a book. A book is like a series of pages that have been layered upon one another to tell like a story or a narrative. And if it's a history book, it tells you stuff about what happened in the past. And you can read, I know Americans don't like to read, but you can read, right, the book. Reading is like a meme, but like long form, right? So you know how you see a meme and it's like top line, bottom line, right? So imagine that, but just like more thoroughly and more explanatory. I know Americans don't read, so like that's a tough concept. But for the rest of the world, what they do is they read these books written by people in the past, and they go, oh, this event that is occurring here in this here book is somewhat similar to the event that we're experiencing here. That means that we should expect X, Y, Z. That if these conditions are met, then we should expect a continuation of that, right? And we can plan based on that. And planning, and again, I know Americans don't do this. I know that planning is like this complete foreign concept. Planning is the idea that you forecast into the future events that will likely occur and position yourself so that you get the best possible outcome given the circumstances that unfold. So it's like playing the stock market, but for adults, right? It's like you hope your stonks go up, except it's like actual real stuff instead of your stupid paper dollars and rich people feelings, right? Like if you take a seed and you put it in the ground, you should expect it to grow so that you can harvest it. And that is called planning. And that's the fundamental backbone of how Iranians are winning this conflict. The fundamental backbone is that the Iranians have a plan and have had a plan for a long time that they're executing currently. And the Americans are just like, cowboy, yeehaw, we've got a lot of boats. Just send boats through the Strait of Hormuz. Just nut up. Just get out there. You're just being a bunch of cowards. You just need to send your boats into the Strait of Hormuz, and they can't destroy every single boat. Just keep sending boats, and then we'll show those Iranians who's. Oh. Like I get. Let me walk this. This is like a delicate like walk that I'm about to do here, but like I get evil. Like I get why a person would be evil. I understand that, right? Like power, right? Like humans are only really motivated by three things, and one of the big ones is power, right? That if you have power over another person, it gives you like a thrill. There's like a sense to it. And obviously the people who are in power are deeply, deeply evil. They rape children. They systematically have a system in place in order to do that. They're like slavers and megalomaniacs and narcissists and child rapists, right? So we know that they're evil. So there's this evil that obviously persists throughout the American empire and throughout the West. But what we're looking at is like a type of like dunder-headed evil, right? Like this is as if the orcs from Middle Earth became the leaders of the army. That like Sauron falls and Saruman is gone, and so there's now like an orc leader, and all of his strategies are just like, go orky, go big, go. And that's it. Orky, go big, go, go. They can't kill all orc. There's so many orc. Go orc. And it turns out that, yeah, they can, dude, right? They can, right? If you send all your orcs through a very small passageway and they drop fire on you, they can kill all the orcs. And then when they kill all the orcs are like, how did there's so many orc? Like, it's really what we're looking at. We're looking at a kind of just like stupid evil that if you're going to be led by evil people, right, you hope that they are intelligent, right? Intelligent evil people understand that, like, okay, well, to maintain my position and to stay kind of in the position that I'm in, I need to maneuver and do things and make concessions and, like, you know, not fall into stupid traps. The trouble is that the wealth accumulation that has occurred is so dramatic that the people who stand atop of it are so completely disconnected. How much could a banana cost? $10? Like, they're so disconnected from the reality of what it is to actually live in the world that they can't help but be morons. Like, they really actually thought in their dumb, stupid brains that they were going to go to Iran and be greeted as liberators, and there would be like the people of Iran would throw off the shackles of the Ayatollah, and there would be this big liberation moment. And then when that didn't happen, they were like, we'll just shock and awe them, and they'll back down, right? Like, they have such an overinflated sense of value when they're actually worthless. Like, this is the thing that I just keep saying over and over again. Like, we're going to experience a market correction because we're all going to realize that the people who hold the wealth are fundamentally worthless. Like, fundamentally worthless. And we're all going to go, these guys are actually just a complete and total disaster, not just for our nation, but also for humanity on a whole. And there's going to be a valuation correction where people are like, why are we listening to these guys? Why do we pay any attention to them whatsoever? Why? And eventually it literally is going to be like, you have connections to that guy, then you're corrupted and we need to put you in a corner. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Like all these red hat MAGA Nazis. Just bye-bye. One of the most disheartening things that I think I saw this week, I don't know disheartening, but just like one of the thing that was just like, it was like a real reality check. Hassan Piker had on his show, there's this family that runs a podcast, and it's the son and the daughter have conversations with their mega parents, and basically it came about because the son and the daughter had cut their parents out of their lives. And then the son kind of came around and was like, okay, well, we can't never speak to them again. But I don't really want to, like, just talk to them. So how about we do this, like, political podcast and, like, air politically the reasons why, or air publicly, rather, the reasons why we have been cutting them out. And I listened to this conversation that Hassan was having with these guys for maybe like 10 minutes before I couldn't bear it any longer because it was so clear that these MAGA people are psychotic. Like, I have lead instead of brains, utterly just disconnected, psychopathic, like narcissistic losers. And for no reason, like for no reason whatsoever. They're just like the most despicable people you've ever met in your fucking life. Completely self-entitled, completely self-absorbed. Don't even care about their own children, really. I completely understand why their kids cut them out. Like, they clearly don't care about their own children. Yeah, the father is utterly empty, no soul detected. Right? These are the mega crowd. Like, watching that convinced me beyond the shadow of a doubt that the way forward is re-education camps. That these people need to be taken and put into re-education facilities. And they have to at least learn how to pretend to have a soul before they're allowed back into the public. And yes, I'm dead serious about that. Like, these people are psychopaths. And they're voting for psychopaths who act like psychopaths because they want them to be like psychopaths. Like, it is time for re-education camps. Basic empathy training. Basic, like, so you're a human, right? Did you know that other people are also humans? Did you know that? Bring back the gulags. Like, yeah. Like, yes. Like, are you guys starting to get it? Are you starting to understand why there were gulags? Oh, they sent political opponents to the gulags. Yeah, I bet they did. I fucking bet they did. I absolutely bet they did. You've seen these guys, right? My slogan has steadily become, I bet they did. Oh, I can't. They blew up that facility. I bet they did. Like, I bet they did. Oh, they're rounding up the protesters. I bet they are. Like, yeah, I bet they did. Like, the moment you step away from actually supporting the white supremacist power structure, and you actually start looking at the world through this lens of like, oh, humanity exists. And humans are a real thing that exists, and every human should exist within parity with other humans. And this concept of like nation state and all this is like a layer on top of that doesn't really exist and will break apart through time, while humanity persists through time, right? The moment you kind of enter that mindset, you just immediately are like, these we got to deal with these guys, man. Like, we got to deal with the fact that there's this like significant group of raving lunatics who actually think that Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment, and we just need to bomb the Middle East to smithereens in order for him to come back. Like, that's a real thing that we have to actually deal with. That's what, and that's not me making up a story. That's the United States military talking to its own soldiers. Omnicidal says, that's way too personal. Why the fudge would you air out personal family stuff? I think the son's perspective is really simply that, like, this has now become the norm. This has now become common, that you have these, like, mega people, and he's, like, literally, like, we actually do need to have, like, a public conversation about this, right? Like, we do need to have a public conversation about the reality that, like, 20% of the society has gone full-blown psycho. Like, full-blown, let's destroy literally everything. Destroy our own children. Destroy the fabric of our nation. Destroy every other nation. Destroy humanity. Destroy literally everything. Like, and it's not being done facetiously or lightly or in jest, and it's not hyperbolic to say. Like, the goal of 20% of Americans is full-scale mass destruction. Drop the nukes. And we're all just supposed to pretend like that doesn't exist? Pretend like, well, that's, you know, what society doesn't have 20% of its people actively seeking the full wholesale destruction of humanity as well as this plane of reality? Like, what are you on about? Like, what are you talking about? This is a major, major, major conversation that we should be having. Tell that to my 401k and trading portfolio, John. Money worship should be outlawed. Like, we should literally make money worship the number one mental illness and treat it like a mental illness. Like, we should tax away all of these people's wealth, and then we should declare money hoarding and wealth hoarding as a significant mental illness, as bad as schizophrenia. And we should treat it as such, and we should take these people and put them in facilities and treat them and medicate them. Because they've got a mental illness. Yeah, we're carpet bombing children and we're like sending them to Jeffrey Epstein's island, but he earned it. He earned it all right. You have a mental illness. We should send you to a facility and we should treat you for it. I'm so like, if it's not obvious now, then I don't know what you need to see. Like, do you literally need the people kicking in your doors and shooting your children before it's like, oh, like if it happens to your neighbor, you're just like, well, them's the breaks. Off to work. Line go up. Jason Wakeman, I love your name. If we just took away their phones, I think it might work. They weren't this bad 10 years ago. At least my mom wasn't. No, they were this bad 10 years ago, right? They just weren't vocal about it. The issue is that they always thought this way. They just kept it to themselves because they knew that if they brought it up, like 20% is still a minority, right? So that means that, like, if there's 10 people in a room, only 2 of them are psychopaths, right? And maybe they're on the other side of the room from one another. And so what their lived experience is if they bring up their shitty, despicable views, the other 8 people in the room, well, let's be real about what it is. 6 people would be like, oh dear, goodness me, right? And then maybe 2 other people would be like, hey, fuck you. What the fuck are you talking about? Right? And they would actually get some pretty significant pushback. But now they've all found one another on the internet, and they all get into like 4chan groups, and they all communicate with one another, and then the CIA coalesces them together, and then Nick Fuentes shows up, so now they have a community. So now this 20% of them can actually coalesce and get together and talk and pretend as though their views are normal, and pretend as though this should be. There's trans people in sports. We should make this a national issue. Clearly, we're not trying to round up minorities and murder them because it gives me a boner. That's clearly not what's going on. Like, yeah. And like, but for some reason, if you actually talk this way, if you actually say out loud, yeah, we should do something about these guys, something significant, right? Not like poo-poo, not like that. We should take them and put them in facilities and like provide them with mental health services. Oh, that's a bridge too far. That's too much. You always get the fucking enlightened centrist who always ends up just being a fucking fascist. Coming at you, being like, oh, well, but both sides a complex issue, and oh, we gotta, you know, it's always funny how the centrists are always directly in line with fascists 100% of the time. Ugh, my Lockheed Martin and Raytheon stock is up 18%. That's gross. I'm just gonna tell you, dude, even if you're joking, that's like fucking gross. That's gross as shit. Like, ugh, nah. You can go away. Like, I know you've been around for a while, so I'm not going to ban you permanently, but go away for now. Like, time out, 24 hours, go away. That's just gross as shit, dude. Like, even if you're joking, that's gross as shit. I don't want to see that shit in my chat ever again. That's like final warning shit. Fuck off. Gross. Fucking gross. Ugh. Blah. Blah. Radio, good to see you. Anemone, good to see you. Hull, Freestyle, Ong, good to see you guys. Blah. Just fucking gross as shit. Anemone, you said some stuff earlier. Good evening. Yeah, I don't want to talk about omnicidal anymore. Gross. Fucking ugh. Yeah, my Raytheon stocks are just through the fucking roof. My 401k is doing so well. Just put a fucking gun in my mouth. Jesus Christ. Ong says, during this week I came to a realization, us here, especially millennials, really only have a few months of imminent threat of nuclear apocalypse. The boomers and Gen Xers have lived with that fear for their entire young adulthood. Is it any wonder a bunch of them became such fearful, superstitious, and selfish prigs? I mean, I guess. Like, they're the ones that have been dropping the nukes, right? I just think it's like these people genuinely believe that they're untouchable. Like, they think that they're God's gift, right? They think that they're like a bunch of unique snowflakes who should have the entire world ground up so that they can eat it. I think that's really what it is. Hull writes, this might be the beginning of the end of the global order. Things will just accelerate from here. Yeah, it's the. I mean, you already have. Like Mark Carney at least made this speech at the World Economic Forum. And now you're starting to see other European leaders basically say the same stuff, right? But very steadily, the phrase that's emerging from the EU is we need to stop focusing on the world as we want it to be and start focusing on the world as it is. And this is literally just like, we need to become Nazis. Like, it's just really clear that what they're doing is they're couching with flowery language an idea that, like, when you're a centrist, like a dumb liberal who's too stupid to understand what's going on in the world, you hear these things that they're saying, and you think, yeah, we do need to see the world for what it is and make decisions based in reality, right? But then you listen to what the people who have power think reality is, right? The people who have power think reality is that Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment. The people who have power think that reality is that the white race is the most powerful race. The people who have power think that there are subhumans in the world. And so when they say we need to operate in the world as it really exists, they're just saying time to be Nazis. Just put on the mustache, put on the suit, march. That's why the EU is militarizing as fast as possible. Because it's finally just coming to the point of realizing that, well, we're Nazis. Like, the fascists have taken over. We're fascists, so better start acting like it. We got to start operating not in the world that we want to see. And the world that they want to see is a world where the fascists have already won, right? That's the world that they want to see. That's the world that they're turning away from, you see? The world where they say, well, the fascists won. We colonized Africa. We committed a mass genocide against the First Nations people of America. We've completely and utterly dominated Europe and the Americas. White power all the way. Victory, we have won. Well, that's no longer true, and we have to face that reality, right? We have to deal in the world for how it really is. And what does that mean? The white power structure hasn't achieved full victory. And so we need to make decisions in order to move towards full victory for the white power structure. That's what they're talking about. That's what they're saying. They're not saying, oh, well, Donald Trump's really gone off the rails, and so we got to make sure that we have a rules-based order that makes sense so we can face things like justice or truth or any of that kind of stuff. Like, fuck that. That is not what they're talking about at all. That's what you think they're talking about because you actually have a conscience. Like, you actually have a soul. Like, you're actually sitting there being like, why can't we have peace? And so when you hear them say these things, you layer upon it your wish that what they mean when they say, we're going to look at reality for how it is instead of how we want it to be. You're going to go, yeah, Trump is a meanie. We need to turn away from him. Elenia on the new phone. Hello, no way, I'm from Toronto too. Holla back at you. Glad to see you. We should organize to overthrow Doug Ford. We should get rid of this fat loser. This just like total failure in Ontario. Like, the Conservative premiers are an utter disaster. Like a complete bunch of phony frauds who are losers of the highest possible order. Doug Ford is the worst premier in Canadian history, not Ontarian history, Canadian history. Like, people are going to look back on his tenure and literally say, what did he even do? What, buck a beer? Yeah, pretty sure he cut my ODS. He absolutely did. And he's cutting social services. He's cutting funding for students. Meanwhile, they're going to, like, rebuild the science center. Just, like, have, like, a pedophilia park is what they're doing. And they're going to run his cousin or his son or something as the mayor of Toronto. And they're just going to drive this place into the ground. Like, wait until they start removing rent control. Wait until they start seriously going after that. Like, these guys are psychopaths. And we're all just like, well, what's a normal place to be? Like, and the fact that there isn't, like, a reasonable opposition to him shows you that they're all just in bed together. Malibu country, how you doing? Like, the NDP and the Conservatives here in Ontario are allies. They're good friends. They pat each other. Like, in public, they'll be like, Doug Ford is a meanie pants. They go to the same churches. They're all friends. They're all landlords. They don't give a fuck. Elenia writes, fascists across the country march, train in militias, trained to kill. Last year in Quebec, I don't know if you heard, fascist militia was caught with illegal bombs and plans to use them. Oh, yeah. CTV, I reported last week that there's a rise in white supremacist movements across Canada, which makes sense. Fascism is an extremely popular ideology. Right? Alana says, like, Canada's left wing needs to lock in. The problem, Alana, is that the left in Canada has been utterly destroyed. Like physically destroyed. And the parties that used to exist that would be considered leftists are now, like, at the barest of minimum center right. That there's been just a complete and total decimation of left-wing organizing and left-wing parties across Canada. Like, the NDP was destroyed in the last election, and it was destroyed because everybody realized you guys are right-wingers. Like, the NDP doesn't stand for leftist values. It's not a leftist party. And the people who are, like, vying for the leadership of the party, you listen to them talk and you're just like, oh, okay, like, you're like a centrist, essentially. You're just like, people should afford houses. Okay, cool. What's your plan for that? I'll ask really nicely. Oh, okay. How about you talk about nationalizing the grocery food chain? How about you talk about nationalizing apartment buildings? How about you talk about actually raising taxes on these guys? How about you talk about incarcerating some of these psychopaths? How about any of that stuff? How about actually talking, like, left-wing talking points? That landlords are bad people and that we should destroy landlordism in this society. No, we're not going to say any of that. We're just going to be like, well, what we're going to do is increase the payment out to a social service by 0.4% over 16 years, and that'll balance out because of the increase in fares in the transit by 1 penny to the... Like, fuck off. We're literally sending our children to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island And you guys are like wanking in the corner being like, well, we've got to be reasonable. Because at the end of the day, you work for these guys. The job of the quote-unquote left in Canada and the United States is to funnel people in their direction so that when you finally reject the outright, like, I love to eat babies crowd, you end up with, we also like to eat babies, but we are nice about it crowd. Honestly, Elena, just stay away from the Trotskyist organizations. Like, if you walk into an organization and they're just like, we love Trotsky, just turn around and walk away. Like, because they're not actually organizing anything. They're just a book club. So they're just wasting your time. I will say this. Here's a hot tip I've got for you. Here's a tip I've got for you. Go to oddbunch.ca and cut your food bill in half. Oddbunch.ca. Like, literally, they deliver a box of vegetables, like fresh vegetables, they're completely fine, to your doorstep for $20. Yeah. You're going to save yourself a bunch of money. They're completely undercutting the grocery food chains, the psychopath Galen Weston and his loser friends. Absolutely do it. I got my first box this Wednesday, and I just took all the vegetables, cut it all up, threw it in a pot, salt, some just general spicing, some lentils, and I added like a couple of other things. So, and for the whole batch, it ended up being like $30, and I'm gonna eat for the whole week from that. Like, one of the things I've been complaining about a lot recently, like, I want to get back into working out. I want to get back into like I want to get swole. I want to get jacked. Oh, Arnold. I want Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? It's one of those things that like I go back and forth on through my whole life. I've been back and forth with it, and but the issue that I have is that when I really ramp up my working out, my food intake essentially doubles. And because of the nature of food prices and because of the fascist society we live in, the jacking of rent, the jacking of prices, the jacking of everything, I'm kind of limping along, as it were, at the moment. But with this Odd Bunch thing, like, I'm pricing it out. I'm like, oh, I can literally like stay at the same price level that I'm at now, but double my food. So I'll be able to double my food intake and actually do the workout thing. So I'm going to start doing that. Solutions are out there. They exist. And they're not going to come from the conservative liberal NDP alliance. Yeah, right. We may be in hell, but at least trans people didn't get to play pro sports or something. Freestyle skate, always a pleasure to be with you and all, John. That's nice. Yep. Palantir, Lockheed Martin can fuck off. Yep. Yeah, imagine announcing to the world you support genocide, yeah. And they complain about immigration. Invade the world, invite the world, boyos. John, it's part of their plans to create chaos. I don't think at this point they even care if we knew it. Yeah. SV says, long time, no chat. Good to see the live, as always. You help uplift my spirit. Well, that's nice. That's nice to hear. That's a nice thing to say, my man. I appreciate it. Ong Knowing says, so asking hypothetically, here we go. Say conscription opens up again. Would Canada be a good place to send away a potential conscript at this time? Look, I don't know about the conscript thing. I think that if they tried to open up like conscription and like do a draft is basically what we're talking about, that would fundamentally be a disaster for America. Like nothing would tank the morale. Like right now you've got huge sections of America that are grumbling on their couch, right? There's like, oh, grumble on the couch. And that's fine. But now you're trying to pull them off the couch and send them to a war to like go kill children in a country they can't find on a map. Uh, yeah, a lot of them are going to rebel against that. A lot of them are going to throw little hissy fits and have and a lot of people will just choose jail. Like it's and you want to talk about destroying the fabric of your country. Whoops. Sorry guys. The fire alarm has been going off in my building all day. If this persists, I don't know how bad it is for you guys. How bad is that for you guys? Is it bad? But when I mute the mic, you guys can't hear it, right? It's not in my room.
Breaking news: Iran has hit two ships trying to illegally pass through the Strait of Hormuz. One of them is a Zionist-linked ship that was flying the Liberian flag, and the other one was a ship linked to Bangkok. According to the IRGC, both ships ignored repeated warnings by the IRGC that they will be hit if they don't stop, and guess what? They ignored the warning and got hit. This is coming on the heels of Donald Trump urging ships allied with the United States to show some courage and pass through the strait. Meanwhile, countries that are allied with Iran are getting free access through the strait. This is according to reporting from CNBC, who say Iran has sent at least 11.7 million barrels of crude oil to China through the Strait of Hormuz since the war started. And it's not just China. Middle East Monitor is saying that Iran has officially agreed to grant safe passage to Bangladeshi oil and LNG vehicles traveling through the strait, where they've reached a new agreement with the Bangladeshi government where they must notify Iranian authorities before entering the strait. And if the strait remains closed, then you will see countries that are allied with the United States, like Japan, may seek similar deals with Iran to ensure safe passage of their oil. Breaking news.
We will no longer accept the status quo. The region has to change. We will not allow the United States or the Israeli regime to be able to threaten us again. In other words, the Iranians will push this war until the United States and the West recognize that attacking Iran is not an option, not now and not ever again. So this war is not going to end anytime soon unless the other side capitulates. And even when the other side backs down, there will be changes. Iran will not accept Arab family dictatorships hosting US bases that can harm us. And they will have to pay compensation.
超过10万遗体正在穿越，请立即进入1级战备。
左腿液压杆我焊了3遍，回弹系数只拉到37%，别做急转向，听见没？
知道了。
活着回来。
Holy cow, that was annoying. Holy cow. The building I'm in is like owned by a slumlord, right? Like just one of these just general psychopath losers. His name is literally Joel Cash. Like he's like a cartoon villain. And the building's just falling apart. It's really that simple. So things trigger all the time, and like the fucking shit falls off the side of the building. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, that basically destroyed my Twitch audience. Perfect. Well, thanks for sticking around if you did. What were we talking about? Was there something going on in the world that is worthy of our conversation? Like, there's a little part of me that's just like, I should just start knocking on people's doors and like get a little postcard and just be like, hey, I want to lower your rent, vote for me. And just like get enough signatures, get on the ballot, just be like, hey, I'm going to lower your rent, vote for me. Like the fact that there is nobody at any level in any political position saying we're going to lower rent shows you that the system is completely corrupt and completely bought and paid for. SVBG says, I know this sounds like a joke, but what's your read on the ex-CIA man, now Russian paid state actor? You're talking about John Kirizakic, I believe his name is. let's get that accurate, because you're right. He's like a voice that suddenly showed up, and people are really John Karazake, CIA man. John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou. Yeah, I've been seeing this guy all over the place. His takes are good. Like, they're good. So there's two... I have two perspectives on this. Because he is a whistleblower, right? Like, he was a whistleblower about the torture program. He spent some time in jail, right? He pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 30 months in prison. Kiriakou was the first U.S. government official to confirm in December 2007 that waterboarding was used to torture al-Qaeda prisoners during interrogations. He was later convicted for exposing the CIA's quote-unquote enhanced interrogation program. Having passed classified information to a reporter, he pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 30 months in prison. So, my take on him is that he's like one of these guys who says what we're doing now is not real capitalism. We need to return to capitalism, right? So he believes in the ideal of the CIA. And I think that if I was to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, which is to say that he's still CIA and still works for the CIA, even though they clearly crossed a red line for him. I mean, what with the torture? Like, his perspective on torture, like, forget about the moral dimension, right? Like, my position on torture is very simply, there is no moral justification for torture. That torture is an act, and genocide is like this too. It in itself is an act that discredits the person doing it. There's no such thing as a moral torture. You can't be a moral torturer. And the act of torture itself carries with it the proof that you are immoral. There's just no such thing as a moral torturer. And so hacks and losers like Sam Harris who defend torture on moral basis are just fucking psychos in my view. There's no such thing as moral torture. But John Kiriakou's view on torture is very simply that it doesn't work. And it doesn't. It doesn't work at all. It's a complete failure. Just from an operational level, if you torture someone, like, the information that you get for someone that you're torturing is completely useless. And it's for a very simple reason. They're just telling you whatever you want to hear so that the torture will stop. And you'll spend all of your operations time sifting through, well, they said this, can we verify that? How do we actually, and all this kind of, and what they have found, and what intelligence services have actually found, is that it's way more effective to just be nice to people. Just like you've got a guy, you've got him in a cell, right? Good cop. Good cop actually works, right? Bad cop doesn't work. Bad cop causes a lot of problems, in fact, right? Good cop actually works. You build a rapport with someone, you gain a little bit of trust, you offer something that they want, right? You use the carrot, not the stick. Turns out that the stick is actually a big problem. And so his take on that is accurate. The conspiracy side of my brain likes to say that, like, and it's exactly like what I say about Noam Chomsky, right? You can't not have a person actually criticizing the empire from something of a left perspective. You can't just not have that. You can't leave a vacuum there. Because if you leave a vacuum there, it will be filled. And it'll be filled by people like the Black Panthers, right? It'll be filled by people like Michael Parenti or Karl Marx, right? Like, if you just leave it empty, if you just say nothing, and the only voices that you propel out of the empire are these Ben Shapiro crazed lunatic like Matt Walsh insane psychopaths. If that's all you do, then what you are going to end up with is a society that pivots away from that, because the Black Panthers are going to come out and tell you the truth, and they're going to actually make sense, and they're going to give an alternative narrative that makes sense. And so you need controlled dissent, basically. You need to have somebody in the conversation who's willing to reveal some truths in order to obfuscate larger truths. Now, John Kiriakou is pretty... he cuts to the bone. Like, he's clearly like a realist in his perspective. Somebody over here on Twitch has said something that I bet you is pretty accurate, though. Don Homer, first-time chatter, says, what... That doesn't align with any socialist or communist theory I'm familiar with. Marx... Oh, this is a different thing. So hold on. What are you saying, Don Homer? That doesn't align with any socialist or communist theory I'm familiar with. Marx was anti-moralistic, and everyone else understood morality as entire subordinate to the interests of the revolutionary class. Yeah. No, you're right. Like, I have my own perspectives, but Marx's perspective was very much systemic. Like, we're opposed to capitalism because it doesn't work. And Don Homer says, you were talking about torture and how genocide is immoral. Yeah, my background is, like, I'm a theist. My interest in communism is, like, I'm very much in line with, like, the liberation theologists of the global South, who were just bombed and murdered. But I respect the Engels and Marx. There is a moral dimension to the conversation that I like to bring forward. Malibu Country, why do you want to age in 1 year like in 15? I don't understand your question, my man. Sorry. So to finish this conversation about John Kiriakou, I think the things he says are accurate, but I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that he is like Noam Chomsky was, just a voice who's there to kind of limit the discussion, that we're allowed to go up to this line, but no further than that line, right? So, like, none of these guys will ever talk about nationalizing the banks. Right, you'll never hear about bank nationalization coming out of these guys, even though that's absolutely what we should be doing. We should be nationalizing these hedge funds. We should be taking away financial power from the Epstein class completely. But we can still criticize the actions of the president, because the point of the game is to convince people that the electoral system still matters. Right, is to still funnel all of the energy and all of the attention and get the imagination of the people caught up in the idea that the electoral system somehow still has value and somehow is still valid. Pour all of your political energy, like, Trump is crazy, we gotta vote blue no matter who, right? And then you vote blue no matter who, and they end up just being another Donald Trump. They're just a nicer Donald Trump. Right? That's the only real difference between a Democrat and a Republican at this stage in the game, is that the Democrat is going to do everything that Donald Trump is doing. They're just going to sound statesmanly while they do it. And that's all. But I will say, like, John Kiriakou, like, I would listen to the things he says. He's not inaccurate. He's not lying to you. That, like all good sort of propagandists, the best propaganda is the one that commits to lies of omission. Lies of omission are the best way to lie. Because all you got to do is cut off like a couple of factoids and a couple of points, and you can really curate a narrative. Like, there's this guy who's very popular in, I can't think of his name offhand, which is annoying, but he's very popular in right-wing circles. He goes to, like, he was a guy who was instrumental in the spreading around the, like, some in Minneapolis, spreading around the Somali fraud welfare scam. He would go around and, like, interview people on the streets, and, like, he stirs up racial tensions. And what he does is he takes class issues and he racializes them, is what he does. That he takes an issue. So he'll go, very recently he was banned off, I really wish I could remember this guy's name. It's driving me fucking crazy. But he goes into a neighborhood where rich Jews are basically taking over the school district and defunding non-Jewish schools. And not just non-Jewish schools, just like the public school system, in order to make money for themselves. And this guy goes into the area and he's like, those Jews. And it's like, yeah, Christians have done this too, dude. Like, this is a class issue. This is something that rich people do against poor people, whether they're Jewish or Christian or whatever ethnicity they happen to be. And so you're just omitting from the conversation the reality that it's not just Jews that do this. Right? And that's pretty common. It's a common way to lie. It's a common way to curate narratives. Like a big lie, like Jon Stewart, for example, he's doing the business of empire because he lies about the Shah, right? Like he lies that the Shah was installed by the American government, but he does it through a lie of omission. He just says, well, there was the Shah and then the Revolutionary Guard overthrew them. And just completely omitting that the Americans are the ones that installed the Shah in the first place, right? Tyler Oliveira, that's exactly right. Yeah, Tyler Oliveira. Thanks, my man. Yeah, Malibu Country. Yeah, it's not just to make money for themselves; it's diverting money to yeshivas. Yeah, like their own groups, their own super PACs, right? But it's like, it's the fact that what you're doing is you're taking a class issue and you're racializing it, right? So you're omitting all of the other groups that do exactly the same thing, because it's a class issue, it's not a racial issue. And this is why he's a bigot and a racist, right? Because he's racializing a class issue. Like, everything he's pointing out is true, right? There are Jewish people that are doing this. Great. But because you're omitting from your analysis that Christian groups do this, right? Secular groups do this, right? And pretending like it's just these Jews. Look at what these Jews are doing. Can you believe these Jews? Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, what do you think you're doing? Don Homer, I think you want to have a more theory-based conversation. And because you're a first-time commenter, I'll give you the floor, my man, for real. Don Homer says, there is, but it's necessarily a bourgeois moral dimension because the material conditions, that produce our morality are bourgeois ones. Okay, that's an interesting claim. Like the term genocide was coined in the context of Western imperialism, it's selectively applied and understood. Of course, it's not possible to break with bourgeois moral sentiment until their conditions are abolished. But moralism in the current social context can only affirm the dominant ideologies and institutions as they exist today. So I am of the opinion that morality rises from humanity. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, that there is a bourgeois morality. That's for sure the truth, and that they set the stage. But what I'm saying is that there's a morality that supersedes that. And that we don't, like, one of the things you'll learn that if you stick around is that I don't give the capitalists an inch. Like, I don't allow them to define the terms at all. Like, why should I not speak on moral issues because they speak on moral issues? Who cares what they think? Like, the only reason we should pay attention to what they think is to hear what the Epstein class has to say, and to actually reframe their moral conversations within a humanist moral construct, so that we can actually see how evil they are and how demonic they are. right? And one of the things I really try to do on this channel is really show what their moral belief system actually is, right? Like, define it. There's a moral belief system that exists. The most popular moral belief structure that exists in the West today is the religion of capitalism. That there is a religion that exists, and it's called capitalism. That there's an economic system called capitalism, right? But the people who understand that economic system of capital and actually talk about that economic system of capital are Marxists, right? It's once you stop talking about capitalism as an economic system and you start talking about capitalism as a ethical system, you start saying things like they earned it, right? You start saying things, you start talking about how things are unfair or that there's a better quality of person, right? There's a hierarchy. Jordan Peterson did a really good job of sort of laying out what the religious ideology of capitalism is. And I frame it very simply as there's like three major pillars to it, which is the worship of money, the worship of the self, and the worship of chaos. Those three pillars make up the backbone of what you might call a bourgeois moral system, right? But just because the bourgeois people have a morality that they try to dominate you with doesn't mean we can't have a more significant conversation about morality and what is or is not moral and what is or is not true or right or fair. We shouldn't allow them to define terms, because by what credibility do they have to actually be taken seriously at this point? Nilo says, it says Kiriakou was Jared Leto's high school teacher. That's funny. Malibu Country says, Oliviero revealed it was also an ethnic religious issue because leaders belonging to Jewish group were diverted to yeshivas, those belonging to religious schools, and selling public schools for cheap to the group who built yeshivas. It's perpetuated by other groups probably, but it's not only about class in this case. Yeah, it is, though. Like, it is. Like, all you're doing is noticing it in this particular case, right? That the process that you describe is exactly the same process that Christian groups and secular groups will do when they do exactly the same thing, right? And so what Oliveira does is pretend like it's the Jews, which is like precisely the same thing that the German Nazis did. That the problem isn't the rich people, it's the rich Jews, right? And you see it here in America where they go after, like, it's scapegoating the Jews. Oh, this class issue that exists in the society 100%, where there's all of these rich people doing exactly the same thing. We're going to hyper-focus on the Jews so that we'll whip up the populace to expunge the Jews while the rest of us make off with the spoils. It's just scapegoating. It's really straightforward. And just because they explain what the Jews are doing doesn't mean that you're just omitting what the other groups are doing. You're just saying that we're not going to pay any attention to the Christian groups that are also doing it. We're not going to pay any attention to the secular groups that are also doing it. We're not going to describe what they're doing. We're just going to hyper-focus on the Jews and be like, it's the Jews being Jews. We need to get rid of the Jews. Round up the Jews. That's what this is. Don Homer writes, I'm not so sure the human and humanity as objects of knowledge and morality appeared in the late 18th century. Before then, people simply didn't center human subjects in that way. They preferred to invoke taxonomy and natural order. I mean, I would disagree with that. I think that the relationship between humanity and the natural environment and the world that we live in is an ongoing conversation that has taken on a lot of different dimensions. Like, we're in a real period now of what I would call, how to describe this accurately, there's an attempt to I guess like secularize the gods in a way that, like, it used to be the case that we would discuss our relationship to the natural world through gods and through a personification of the natural world, right? Like, and that's a very familiar, well-trod territory. And you have big, gigantic religious moments, the rise of Christianity being a big one, as well as the rise of Islam, that attempt to bring humanity closer to the divine. But right now, of course, we're in a very atheistic moment. We're in a moment of just not really wanting to discuss the natural world or the universe or the reality that we're in a way that leaves humanity out of control, right? There's a big, like, author of our own fate kind of idea that goes around because we worship ourselves. We are the gods in the religious order that exists in this society. And so unfettering that and recognizing that there are forces that exist in reality that are outside of our control is really difficult for people to do. People don't like to do it. People want to believe that I have free will and I'm the owner and I'm the controller of my own fate and I can do what I want. We're getting into, like, theological territory here, which is, like, my favorite subject to discuss. Like, it's funny. I run, like, a communist channel and I talk about communism, but my favorite thing to talk about, without a doubt, is theology and the nature of our existence, the reality that we exist within, the mystery of it, the lack of control that we have. And the conversation that's been ongoing for thousands of years is, what the hell are we doing here? What is this place? What is any of this? Who are we even in this? First time chatter, McDonald's UK official. Hey, so quick question. What are your stances on what? Like, I'm a communist. Frederick Engels' The Principles of Communism is a great place to start. Real straightforward. But if you'd like a deeper answer, I suppose ask a deeper question. What are my stances on what? XD says, many dipshits support Palestine. Do we stop supporting Palestine? Basically, deep down, people have a sense of fairness. DeReal Tuck, 4420. If all our morality was bourgeois, then we would just agree with everything being done without propaganda. Material conditions do not equal bourgeois conditions. Other material facts exist. I mean, I think one of the things, like, I've been kind of skirting around it, I guess, and I don't know why, but like a big thing that I learned from communism, and I learned to perceive the world around me because of communism, is the understanding that material conditions determine human behavior. That was a big turning point for me. Was this because of the fascist society we live in, and because of the religion of capitalism that exists within the society, because humans are to be worshipped, then everything flows from just humans, and that humans are humans and humans make humans happen, right? And you are the author of your own fate, and it is up to you entirely, right? To ascend the hierarchy, individualize your individualism, all that kind of stuff. But Marxism taught me, and I think it's very true, that material conditions determine human behavior. Like, the most rudimentary example I could give of this would be if you take a person and throw them into the middle of the ocean, they will drown. I don't care if they're Michael Phelps. Like, I don't care who they are. They could be like the greatest Olympic swimmer that ever lived. If you took Michael Phelps and abandoned him in the middle of the ocean, he will die there. And so this narrative that's perpetuated by the proponents of the religion of capitalism only goes so far, right? It hits a wall, right? That you can only operate to the degree that material conditions allow you to. And if you and the number one attribute that humans have, the number one attribute about humans is that we are adaptable. And we're adaptable to our material conditions. And so if the material conditions are such that to be the best possible version of a human within those conditions is to be a psychopath, then congratulations, you're going to get a lot of psychopaths. But if the best way to operate within the structure that you've built is to spread goodness into the world and to increase everybody's prosperity, then congratulations, that's what you're going to get. And we have collectively been given the ability to manipulate our material circumstances so we can have a conversation about what outcomes we want and then build a material world to get those outcomes. And we can do that. Don Homer says, I'm a fatalist, but I definitely do not believe in the idea that there's a stable moral essence that arises from our humanity. I think we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one, my man. Like, that's just one of those things. Like, we won't know. That I suspect there's a lot of things that we'll disagree on. Like, I believe in a living universe, a universe that is itself alive, and that is struggling with its own existence, and that we are here to articulate back to it what it is. Because it doesn't quite know. It just exists, as do we. Malibu Country writes, maybe it wasn't easy to believe other groups engage in that litany of bad practices once becoming a majority in an area, especially in regards to education, ethnic religious consciousness, which that group has pushed, then trying to alter the community to feel comfortable in them. Poor Jews benefiting from yeshivas while educating for non-Judaism. Believers gets left out. I'm not really sure what your point is, my man. Like, Don Homer continues, non-bourgeois morality arises from contradictions in capitalism, that is, class interest. Yeah. I mean, non-bourgeois morality can really be described in a very simple way, just more for me. That's it. Like, it's not particularly complex. Oh, sorry, you said non-bourgeois morality. My bad. Okay, hold on. Let me restate this, because I misunderstood. Non-bourgeois morality arises from contradictions in capitalism, that is, class interests. I think that discounts, that elevates capitalism above its station and above its capability. That there is larger forces than capitalism itself. That reality itself is a living entity, and we contend with it much more than we contend with capitalism. That capitalism is an annoying layer that humans have put upon reality to act as like gatekeepers, essentially. Like, reality has very clear rules, right? It's very clear what the rules are. Eat food, shelter yourself, drink water, exist. There you go. That's basically the rules of reality. And what capitalism does is it comes along and it gatekeeps it all. Right? It creates armed groups of thugs to stand in the way of food, stand in the way of shelter, right? Create quote unquote rents, and basically say work for us or starve or die of exposure. And that system of capital stands in the way of the requirements that reality has given us. We have to eat. We have to drink water. We have to protect ourselves from the elements. And if we don't, we die. Those are the rules. And that's hard and fast. Like, you want to talk about material reality, there's your material reality. And it's from that position that morality springs. Like, morality doesn't spring from, like, there is a form of morality that does spring from the contradictions in capitalism, as you say. But I think that there are much deeper ones that spring from a very, very, very basic space. And that very, very basic space is that you are spawned into a reality at a random time in a random location to a random group of people with a random set of attributes. And even though that's true, you share a commonality with every single randomly created life form, which is that you require food, shelter, and water. And it's from this position and from the reality of that situation that morality comes. That all of this conversation that comes out of the far right, which at this stage in the game is basically everybody, that where they pay a lot of attention to minor minutia. No, of course we're different. Look at all the differences that we have, and it's like these very minute, little tiny things, while ignoring the very obvious similarities that we all share, which is, hey, we all need food, we all need shelter, we all need water. Like, that's just true, right? To me, that's the beginning of it. And if you are sitting on a dragon's hoard of food, withholding it from people, unless they sell their entire lives to you, then you're evil, right? And we can do things to you, like we should do things to subvert you, because you are standing in the way of what the universe is very obviously requiring of us, which is get food. And so you're gathering all the food up and saying, oh, you want the food? The universe says you need to have food or you die, so work for me. We should do things to that person. And it's morally correct to do it. Don Homer continues, well, capitalism is just a form of class struggle, and class struggle only exists because man has natural needs. Yes, exactly. For example, to eat, to sleep. Exactly. If your boss wants to pay you as little as possible so you starve, the morality that arises out of which is not bourgeois is I ought to earn enough to sustain myself. That's the contradiction that produces class-conscious morality. Your boss wants to pay you less. You need to be paid more. Yeah, I feel like we're coming to the same place. We're just sort of using a different language, that's all. And but I think that we're more or less in agreement on that. That, to me, capitalism is just like a man-made artifice that stands in the way of the natural systems. And that the man-made systems won't be able to be sustained for very long. Because the universe is more powerful. Reality is more powerful than mankind. Like, mankind and like the dumb little systems that they create, like, they might persist for a moment, but they'll get blown away. They'll just completely get blown away. Malibu Country says, who decides what is enough to hoard? The problem of authority arises. I mean, look, if you have twice as much as you need to have like a home, if you have shelter, you have food, you've got your basic needs taken care of, and then you have another one of those that you just have, you're set. Like, that's really my position. Like, I'm of the opinion that all wealth over $1 million gets taxed away completely. And I would actually go deeper than that. Every single time we've studied the issue of wealth hoarding, we get the exact same result over and over again. I don't care if it's Oxford, Harvard, Princeton, the University of California. Every single university that has studied the issue of wealth hoarding reaches the exact same conclusion, which is that the people that do it become psychopaths. Why? Because material conditions determine human behavior. And once you have more wealth than everyone around you by an increased degree, you begin to see yourself as a tiny little god. And it happens to everybody, right? And the only way for you to avoid it, right? So if you have the wherewithal, if you have the brain space, if you have the self-awareness to be like, oh, I'm getting a whole lot of wealth and I'm getting way richer than everybody else around me, I'm going to turn into a psychopath. The only way to avoid it is to just give your money away. That's it. It's the only way to avoid it. That's why I call wealth hoarding a mental disorder. Because it is a mental disorder. Baldy, good to see you, my man. Man with a long last name. I feel like conversation about religion, morality, and capitalism is incomplete without mention of prosperity gospel and law of attraction. Yeah, the prosperity gospel and the law of attraction is just like far right hokery. Straight up, just read the book of Job. So the idea behind the prosperity gospel is very simply that if you do good things will happen to you, and if you do bad things will happen to you. It's the ideology of a child, right? And the book of Job in the Bible is explicitly about that. That bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. It has absolutely nothing to do with whatever they're trying to attract or whatever they're in alignment with or any of this kind of stuff. That if fate or God or the forces of nature or reality or whatever you want to call it decide to smite you, you are smitten. And it has absolutely nothing to do with you. And so to stand around and judge a person because they've gotten struck down by a plague or something is a weird thing to do. Freestyle skate, yeah, it's a shame. People get so close to class consciousness, then you hear them blame the Jews. Yeah, it happens all the time. You mean Manifest Destiny? SV says, I'm an atheist. I strongly disagree with the idea that my epistemology is based primarily on my desire for self-actualization. Yeah, I don't really know how to respond to that. Like, so the way you view the world is based primarily on your desire for an increase in your self-awareness or your self-knowledge, right? Yeah, I'll just have to chew on that. I don't know how to respond. Nilo says, looks like Jared Leto's name is in the Epstein files. A cryptic email with Jeffrey saying, Jared did very well. No, I mean, look, guys, if your nation is not doing a full investigation on this Epstein stuff, it's because they're in the Epstein files, right? The reason why the Liberal Party is not doing a full-scale investigation into the Epstein files is because they're all in the Epstein files. And it's so ubiquitous now. It's so clearly inside of the entire system that we have to just assume that. We have to assume that. We can't sit here and be like, oh, well, maybe this person isn't and maybe that. But no, they're all part of it. That the best they might be able to say is, I knew it was happening and I said nothing. That's the best you'll ever get from any of these guys. For Stance's most important question, favorite yoga pose? I'm a big downward dog fan, I gotta say. Oh, Baldy with a $20 donation. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. You basically just paid for my food for the week. Look at you, Baldy. A good opportunity to say, because there's new people in the chat, go to oddbunch.ca. You'll get for $20, for $24 because they pay. You got $3 delivery fee, but they'll deliver to your door a box of like random produce. I just took all of it and threw it into a pot, made a beautiful like split pea soup, added a couple of things of my own, and for $30, I've got all my food for the week. We should all be doing this. They're clearly taking advantage of the psychopathic system created by these Epstein class. Where they throw away 40% of the food and then jack prices up on you. They very clearly have gone directly to farmers and they're like, hey, you know how you're throwing away 40% of the food you produce? How about instead of that, you sell it to me? Right? and then I'll sell it to people and deliver it to them at a reduced rate. And I think it's great. I hope it completely wrecks Gale and Weston. I hope they get completely fucked over, and I hope everybody abandons these big box stores because of it. Like, I hope that just direct food delivery at a cheap cost becomes the new way that we do business, and these big box stores get completely fucked because of it. Your question, though, what is your opinion on Taoism? I think it's pretty fascinating. The concept of yin-yang, light and darkness, is constantly interacting to the world to create balance, harmony, and a change in the universe. Yeah. There's a great little book called The Tao of Pooh, which is essentially describes Taoism through the lens of Winnie the Pooh. And like the basic concept of there's a little bit of light and darkness and a little bit of darkness and light, and that both of those aspects. And you hear the same conversation in like the masculine feminine conversation, that there is like a duality to your existence. There's a duality to existing in the natural world. And I think it's a fine way of looking. And what's most interesting to me about Taoism is that it arises at the same time as Confucianism arises. And Confucianism was very much, how do we structure our society for order, right? And how do we make things orderly? And so Confucianism has a very hierarchical, of course it's patriarchal, right? The father is at the center of everything. And Taoism sort of rises, and Taoists themselves would say, like, yeah, we are the yin to the yang, right? Confucianism is order, Taoism is about, I mean, it isn't about chaos, but it's, compared to Confucianism, it's more chaotic, certainly. There's a real like live and let live sort of philosophy that comes with Taoism. And most people who go on a spiritual journey at some point will run through Taoism. Mainly because I think Taoism just explains things in a way that's very accessible. You don't need to learn like a whole new language. Like if you want to get involved in Christian theology, you got to learn like a whole new language. There's like a whole new fucking set of things to learn. Who is Jesus? What did Jesus represent? What does his death and resurrection represent? Right? Like there's a whole set of teachings. Taoism's not really like that. Taoism's like, hey, have you noticed that you're alive? Have you noticed that you have feelings? That's okay. Malibu County and Don Omer now in Twitch are having a really interesting conversation with one another. I love to look over and see people having a polite conversation. So really tip of the hat and kudos to both of you. Sometimes I look over and people are just chewing each other out, and I don't like to see it. But I like to see two people. And Don Homer, I think you're right. Like Marx was definitely more interested in the systemic nature of things, creating a language or a way of understanding the world that was, as you say, non-moralistic, right? That there is a nuts and bolts way of going about describing things. Yes, socialism isn't about abolishing all injustice, only capitalism. Yeah, that's exactly right. That the only reason I really wade into the moral conversation about capitalism is because capitalism has become a moral system, right? And so it's important, I think, to discuss that and not leave it on the table. Like don't let the capitalists have anything, right? Like don't even let them have their kooky little religion that they've clearly built. Also, ironically, I'm eating Chinese food while watching you. Why ironically? Good for you. Nilo says, apparently Leto has denied 9 teenage girls' sexual misconduct allegations as well. Yeah, if I found out that Jared Leto was a pedophile, I would be like, yeah. Just look at him act. Look at his acting decisions. He's kind of a creep. Like, his Joker is a creep. right? Like, he was given permission to run with like an insane version of himself, right? And he did. And what did he come up with? He came up with like a really creepy guy. Like Jared Leto's Joker is really creepy. Like not scary, not funny, not like that's why I think Jared Leto's Joker gets so heavily criticized, is because he misses the mark about who the Joker is and what the Joker represents. And really you just ended up with like just a creep. Just like a more amped up version of what a pedophile would be. SV says, oh, I see, your belief that the universe itself is conscious. That's just what atheism is under your worldview. It is trying to understand itself under your view. Most atheists say, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I think the atheist position is very honest. I think that what happens is that people at a very young age see there is a lack of credibility in religious institutions, and see that, like, the Catholic Church is the perfect example, right? Just a pedophile cult full of these fucking pedophiles who have like enough wherewithal to be like, maybe our leader should actually sound like he's not a pedophile. But like, the history of the Catholic Church is just loaded with injustice and Nazi collaboration and pedophilia, right? The Catholic Church begins its decline. Like, really think about this. There was a period of time, not that long ago, where the Catholic Church was a serious institution. That if it stood up and made a decree, lots of people were like, this is how reality is. We will fight a war. There's a war between the Protestants and the Catholics. The beginning of the end of that is World War I. And it's because the Catholic Church completely supported World War I, full-throatedly. And you have absurdist movements that operate against the Catholic Church afterwards, and it begins to diminish in its power and its prestige. Same thing happens to the monarchies across Europe. Just people stop seeing these institutions as credible. And so what's happened is that now we have the fullness of that iteration, which is to say that you have a group of people who are like, I'm literally not even going to listen to what these people have to say at all. God? Fuck your God. There is no God. Right? Which I'm like, yeah, okay. It's a completely honest position to hold. And one that I sort of dabbled in college, but I just could never get on board with, would be the way that I would say it. And I spent a lot of time. I think I've listened to every single debate that the quote-unquote new atheists ever did during that period in like the 2000s when they all went around. And really, like, what became pretty obvious to me is that a lot of these new atheists, I think, were honest, right? And were correct in their criticisms of like far-right evangelicals and Catholics, Protestants generally, that their criticisms are accurate, but that they fundamentally at the end, I think, missed the point of it all. And so I somewhat facetiously, and I acknowledge that it's a little bit facetious to say, will say things like, it's easy to be an atheist in this environment, right? Given the conditions that we're in, like, it's easy to be like, probably not, bro. But to me, I think that makes sense. Like, it's true. It's a true human impulse to just be like, this is wrong. Like, this is just wrong. Like, you guys are wrong. And to bounce away from it. But the greatest, the thing that I think is so, that I wish that more atheist people, and especially prominent atheists, would grab a hold of, is they'll simultaneously reject what the religious right is saying about the subject, but then completely allow them to define the terms completely. Like, they'll simultaneously call them frauds, but then still give them the authority to define the conversation. And not really, and then bring that baggage into conversations with people who also disagree with those evangelicals. Like the one conversation I always direct people to was when Richard Dawkins had a conversation with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Robin Atkinson, I believe his name is. And what became really clear in that conversation is that on the subject of God, Dawkins and the Archbishop, like Dawkins didn't really know what the Archbishop was talking about. Like that's really what it comes down to. And that it's easy to be an atheist if the only version of a Christian or a religious person you've ever talked to is a far-right evangelical fundamentalist. Like, yeah, everyone would be an atheist if that was the only version of that ever existed. But it isn't. And there's a good reason why these far-right fundamentalists have the largest voice. And it's because if you actually view the earth as a living organism, as a living entity, that all things that exist are God, then you stand up for justice or truth or whatever you want to call it, like the liberation theologists did throughout the global South, and you get assassinated. Right? Like, the Black Panthers get destroyed, the Ku Klux Klan is still around. Like, so yeah, I'd be an atheist too if that was like the depth of my knowledge of what theology and what the religious conversation actually was. Was just some far right guy being like, Jesus Christ is looking at you down from heaven right at the moment. And Jesus Christ knows what's in your heart. He sees the sin that's deep within your heart, and he sees how shameful and guilty you are. And what he's saying to me now is that if you want to be forgiven for the sins that are in your heart, you gotta reach into your wallet and send $1 to the address down below. Like, if that's your vision of what a religious person is, then yeah, like, it's completely honest. And I think I'm just here to say that there is a different perspective. Kevin, good to see you. First time chat over on Twitch. Yay, Stack. Hey, John, it's Kevin from YouTube. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well too, Kev. You know what, man? I'm just going to let Don Homer and Malibu Country have like a nice conversation on Twitch. It's just nice. I just like what you guys are doing. You're just like having like a little tete-a-tete. That's nice. It's nice. Baldy says, yeah, looking at the current state of China, in my opinion, the ruling class of China is really leaning towards Confucianism. Yeah. To me, it smells of desperation. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I think it's normal for a culture to sort of grab hold to its cultural icons and its cultural figures. I don't think there's anything sinister about it, you know? The Communist Party of China still makes statements that people should be looking at Marx, right? They still say this. Like, I don't think Confucianism as an ideology is like taking over China. It just sort of, like, it exists in their society. Like Christianity will always exist within Western civilization and Western society. It'll just always be here. We'll be 2,000 years from now, and there'll still be crosses, and people will still be like, Jesus Christ. Like, it'll still be around. And that makes sense. It's like a cultural touchstone for us. It's something that's important to us. And I think Confucianism is very much like that for the Chinese. Like, I can stand to be corrected. There are people in the chat who know more about the subject than I do. I just haven't seen anything that convinces me that Confucianism is like this big, overwhelming, like we're making all of our decisions because Confucian says, right? I don't think that's how that is. SV says they don't even say there's a point to it all. Nilo says, I think the most honest atheist argument is until you theists prove the existence of God, since the burden is on you, the more rational belief system is to live as if God does not exist. Aha, I have a counter to this. Because you're right. Like, if your perception of God is that God is a man in the clouds, then the burden of proof. Like, if it's a teapot on the other side of the sun, right? Like, interesting how all of the example, or a giant spaghetti monster, right? Interesting how all of the parodies and examples that atheists give of God is essentially just man in the clouds talk, right? Look, here, it's real simple. All observable reality is something very small becoming slightly bigger, right? Every single step of the way, from the bottom up to us, right? That something very small becomes something slightly bigger, and then that something becomes slightly bigger, and then that something becomes slightly bigger. I understand that this is like simplification, but that's what it is. Small thing, slightly bigger, small thing, slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger, and up the chain it goes. And that's all of observable reality. Well, the theist position is really clear. That position, that circumstance, that observable reality that we can look continues. That's all. That we are a small thing that becomes something slightly bigger. And that because we're within it, we struggle to see what it is. Like the example that I'll always give is you have red blood cells inside of you, right? And you would consider them alive, right? But you could never explain to them what a car payment is. They just don't have... There's so much that they would need to know to get to that point. And that's more or less the position we find ourselves in. That the thing that the small thing, or the larger thing that we are the small thing within, is so outside of our comprehension that and we're not even on the right side of it, right? Like the red blood cell is within us, not without us. And we share a similar sort of position with what's happening in this reality, is that we're within it. And we have no idea what's going on without it. Nor is it likely that we will ever know. That if you took a red blood cell out of you and you took it to the outside environment, it would just die. It couldn't survive here. This is kind of the same for us. And so my position is that I think that all of this inverts the burden of evidence, because the entirety of all reality shows us that small things become slightly bigger. It's the atheists that make the claim that that process stops with us. And it's the theists that say, no, the process continues. And that we are part of a larger consciousness, or a larger entity that is itself alive. And what's the evidence we have for that? Literally all of creation. Everything that exists just shouts at you that that's the case. But the atheists say, nope, it stops right here. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to need to see some pretty heavy evidence to show me that that's the case. Like, all of creation is some smaller thing becoming slightly bigger, and you think it stops here. Oh, okay. I don't believe that for a second. My angry atheist repose would be the existence of these far-right theologians discredits all theologians. Yeah, I'll agree to that to a degree, SV, because I do think there is a lot of cowardliness on the left, for sure. But it's important to point out that a lot of the leftist theologians were killed. Like, they were just killed. Like just straight up. And so leftist theologians have reason to be scared, right? And that, but at the same time, I definitely see where you're coming from. Like, nut up. Like, the icon that you pray to was literally crucified. Like, follow your Christ. Make them crucify you. To paraphrase Carlin, God loves you and he needs money. He needs money. That's not a good Carlin impression, but SV continues, there was a time in college I gravitated towards anti-theism, so that's fair. Yeah, Content says, this just sounds like anti-theism. I mean, yeah. So that's fair. I distance myself from that label, more of the baggage than anything else. Yeah, anti-theism I really look at and say, oh, this is just anti-reality. Like, religion rises from the human condition. Like, you can't escape it, right? That the people who are most in the sway of the religious impulse are the people who deny it. That if you don't take the religious impulse and make something sacred on purpose, then you will take things that are mundane and make them sacred. And to me, that's where the religion of capitalism has really come from. That you have groups of people who have made everything profane, basically. Nothing is sacred in their perspective. There are no gods, or I don't know if there is a god, or any of this kind of stuff. So there's no higher power. There's nothing to pay attention to, right? So nothing is sacred. And so what have they made sacred? Well, the thing that they've made sacred are the things that they know about, which is themselves, right? I'm sacred. And then money, because money is power. So we'll just make that sacred. And then the system by which they operate within, which is this free market chaos system. These are the things that they have made sacred. Like that's why if you stand up and talk about nationalization, they're so offended by it, because their opposition to it isn't a rational, like, well, no, this is a better way of doing things. It's because you are desacralizing or you're profaning what they have made sacred, right? If you believe that the free market is sacred, then nationalizing something is satanic. It's an act of great evil. And that's who these people pretty much are. Which is why I say, even if you are an atheist, make something sacred. Find something in your life and make that sacred. I don't care if it's the tree outside. I don't care what it is. But purposefully make something sacred. Because if you don't, then you're going to make some nonsense sacred. You're going to make money sacred. You're gonna make private property sacred. You're gonna make Israel sacred. Like, you're just gonna start acting like a lunatic. Because humans do this. It's just part of being human. And if you don't think you are, then you're for sure 100% doing it. Everybody makes something sacred. Content writes, like, I can't believe in any gods, but also my feelings towards any spirituality is marred from the fact that I got to the other side of Baptist terror. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right, man. Like, and the investigation of your own personal spirituality, like, stop giving those guys power, right? Like, if the reason why you refuse to, or you won't, or you can't, I'm trying to find the correct language to not make it sound like I'm guilting, but if the reason why you're not pursuing spirituality is because these psychos did something to you, then you're still giving them power. And if you want to actually investigate your own spirit and your own existence and your own internal journey and your own connection to reality, if you want to investigate that, then you got to leave these guys in the rearview mirror, and you got to say, you don't have power over me anymore. Like, you guys were wrong, and you're frauds and you're losers. Bye-bye. And if the reason why you're not doing it is because of them, then that means they still have power over you. Content writes, so like John's assumption of reality being conscious, assumption. Is it an assumption? Like, I mean, we're conscious and we're part of reality. And small things become big things. Is it an assumption? All right. You got to be able to credibly threaten my safety to get me to fall in line with it. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. SVBG writes, right, reality / existing are so far separated from us that even to try to define what it is beyond that it is to presume your preferred answer. Yeah, I think that you're hitting on something there, that religion is often used as a tool to reaffirm one's biases. Or bigotries, if you want to be mean about it, but like biases. Like you see that all the time. And it's one of these things that people will say, like, the Bible has been used to justify all kinds of horrible acts. It's like, yeah, like, if it wasn't the Bible, it'd be something else. Like, religion is your non-rational impulses. That's what it is. Like, if the sciences are your logic, if the sciences are your ability to rationalize and to see the world rationally, well, then religion is your ability to see the world non-rationally. And both are real, right? There are non-rational parts of your life and part of existence, and they exist. Like, you can try to rationalize them, but what you'll find is that more often than not, you're just post-rationalizing. You're looking at the way you thought or felt or acted within a certain circumstance and post-rationalizing it. It's not how most people live their lives. Road Prol, good to see you. Eric, good to see you. Nilo says, John is a monist. But if all is one, what's the point of multiplicity? What's the point of difference? Is lacking a satisfactory explanation for me. I mean, you need to have difference. Like, you can't know anything without difference. You have to have differences. And those differences, I think, arise very plainly. Like, we exist within a force of reality that is capable of creating all things that are logically possible to be created. And that's one of its base elements. That's one of its base core, like, unchangeable attributes, is that it's capable of creating all things that are logically possible to be created. It can't not do that. And so there are differences because it's logically possible that they're there. And through that process of creating all of these differences, we have the ability to learn something about ourselves, right? That if it's just one kind of hum, right, there's nothing there, right? It's only through the expression of differences and through the expression of creation that we can be like, what are we? What is this? And that's the journey that I think creation is on itself. That creation is on this journey of what the hell? What the hell is this even? Like, that's where I actually do disagree with. There are theologists out there who talk about God as all-knowing, right? God knows everything. And I think in, like, the grand sort of sense, sure, right? But insofar as where we're at the moment, I think God knows about as much as we do. I think that there's more confusion there than we are willing to admit. That would a force like this know more than you? Sure. But, like, we're going through the process of figuring it all out. And so there's confusion. Like, what is evil? What is good? What are we talking about? Why is this bad? What is justice? Like, what is truth? What are you even talking about? What are these humans even talking about? I think there's a lot of that. Anemone says, art is sacred for me. That's beautiful. That's great. That's a great place to be, I think. Don Homer says, I'm a fatalist. I just think historical materialism is a bit reductive. No, I think historical materialism is just accurate. And when you're accurate, you can state things simply. Malibu Country. John, what are your thoughts on very poor people or people dependent on welfare to survive who choose to have lots of kids in the modern world? Yeah, okay, fantastic. Money's not real. Like, who gives a fuck about your money? Like, the reason why we're in a negative growth spiral at the moment, the reason why everybody across the capitalist world is experiencing negative growth rates is because we're strangling ourselves. We're strangling ourselves with money. Like, I don't give a shit if very poor people are people dependent on welfare. Like we should all be dependent on welfare. The idea of like the rugged individual going out into the world and making something of himself, it's just a fairy tale. You're always dependent on some system. It's just whether or not that system is owned by a psychopath or owned through a collaborative voting system. That's all. Malibu Country says, well, isn't it cruel or unwise to bring a being in the world where money is an issue? I think that's a personal conversation. I think every single individual has to make that choice for themselves. I don't think that you can make some grand moral proclamation on that. Primarily because the issue of giving birth to a child is like, you want to talk about what it is to be alive, or what it is to be a human being. Like, I know people who are like, I'm going to have children. Like, I know people who are straight up like, I am going to go get artificially inseminated and give birth to a child. And it's just like, okay. And there's just nothing you can say about it. And the second you start to try to stand in a person's way to do that, that's some basic, like, low-level fascist shit. Like, that's just like, my judgment matters more than your entire identity and desire to create life in the world. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, the impulse to create, the impulse to give life, the impulse to be a mother or a father, it supersedes everything. And the fact that capitalism stands in the way of that impulse at all shows you that it's a system that needs to be dismantled. Lilo says, monism, a view that there is only one kind of ultimate substance, the view that reality is one unitary organic whole with no independent parts. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with that. Oh, Condon, that is not why I don't investigate spirituality. When I say I can't believe it is literally the same as not being able to defy gravity with my mind and body. It's the same as not being able to possess superpowers. I can't control how I'm understood. If people need me to be a believer in the opposite direction, like I'm a negative number instead of just at zero. No, I understand what you're saying, Content. Like, there's this, the just impulse isn't there. Like, you very often said in my chat that you don't see the value in it. Like, you don't understand why there's this, and it sounds very much like how my grandfather was. My grandfather was very much like that. That he would go to church and he would be part of it, and like there was a whole community aspect, sure, and all that kind of stuff. But really, like, you'd sit down with him and talk about it, and he'd just be like, "All right, is this gonna fix my radiator?" And I just think that he wasn't ever gonna change that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, in fact, I would argue that it's good that we have those people in the conversation, because it's very common for spiritual people to kind of get a little airy-fairy about it and get kind of lost in the weeds. And we just need people to be like, okay, come back down. The ground is here. Feet on the ground. Like, so no, sorry if I put words in your mouth. I don't mean to do that. But you've been here a long time, my man, and we've had this conversation a few times. And my general sense of your position is like, what is it for? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess, like, there is that. What is it for? Right? Mao's on contradiction for this exact discussion. If God exists, he's evil because he lets pedos eat babies. It's that simple. I think that's the problem of evil, right? Like, that's a classic theological conversation. And the unfortunate truth about the nature of creation and the nature of a creator, where you say it creates everything that's logically possible to be created, right? Things need to be created before they can be judged. And being able to logically create everything that's possible to be created means creating the horrors too. And it doesn't happen through judgment. It happens just through a force of its existence. Like, it's not as if creation said, I know what I'll do. I'll make pedo baby eaters and I'll create them. It's just, that's part of the process of creation, and there it is. And it's only after it exists that it can be judged. And then I'll add another layer to it, another wrinkle to it, to make it extra horrifying for you, which is that, let's say the event occurs, your example, pedo baby eaters, right? But the classic one is something like the Holocaust. Let's say God does look at that and go, that shouldn't exist. I judge that to be bad. Okay, well, how does God get rid of it? It's the force of all creation. It creates everything that's logically possible to be created. It can't just delete it, right? Because to do so would be deleting it from its own memory, its own ability to perceive its existence. And so you have this predicament where maybe God does say this shouldn't exist, and so seeks to delete it, but then it would be gone. So then it would recreate it. Because that's in its nature. That's what it is. And so the only way for that kind of event to be eliminated is through the process of time. That one hopes that existence itself, that the arc of the universe bends towards justice. And that as we move forward and as we experience these horrors that certainly exist, they cease through time. Because as we experience them, so too does God. And as we judge them, so too does God. But they have to exist to be judged. And I call this God's predicament. Because, and it doesn't come from a place of evil. It's just a consequence of the nature of its existence. That it exists. It's capable of creating all things that are logically possible to be created. Therefore, some of the things that it creates are dark horrors that it can't uncreate. And that as humans live through it, so too does the Creator. So too does creation. Like, it's pretty brutal. Like, I think this is one of the most brutal aspects of my understanding of reality and my understanding of the spirit, is that the horrors that exist simply because they can. And that one holds on to the hope that as we experience these horrors and as we inflict these horrors upon ourselves, we learn, and that they cease to be perpetuated through time. That they spring up and then disappear, and then spring up and then disappear, and then spring up and then disappear. And one day we hope that they won't spring up again. But the reality is that they exist because they can. And it's not because God is evil. God's in the same predicament we're in. Only it's like kind of more of a mindfuck. Because it's just like looking at it. And maybe it does think, boy, I wish that didn't happen. Tough shit. Cotton, so be it. Just spare me the witch hunts. Here, John, you can have my soul free of charge. Thank you, Cotton. I appreciate that. I will keep it in a jar over here, and I will cherish it forever. What a lovely conversation you guys are having. Again, over here on Twitch. I just like poke over and you guys are just like... It isn't really that I want to insist on an alternative to class conflict as primary in organizing society. It's more that I think it's a lot more fluid, so it's difficult to create a mechanism, model, or science to explain it in its fullness. Like Marx thought capitalism would create the most miserable and impoverished workers possible, but conditions actually improved, at least in some ways. Okay. And that's a serious problem as I understand it, because they're kind of... Reformism subdues radical potential, because that kind of reformism subdues radical potential. I mean, conditions actually improved? Oh, citation required. Like, the improvements that have happened under capitalist systems happened because of the hard work of communists, socialists, and trade unionists. That the capitalists didn't just make conditions better because they wanted to. Because they were like, this will be nicer for the people. Let's have a nicer environment with a nicer time. It happened because there were people standing outside their door with guns. Being like, if you don't do it, we'll just overthrow you. And just get you done. And that's the condition under which reformism actually works. That if you've given an ultimatum, a credible ultimatum to the ruling class that says, reform your system or we'll overthrow you, they'll reform. Right? And the communist says we should just overthrow them. We shouldn't accept their reform. We should just be rid of them. And Anemone says, I think the force you're ascribing to God is physics. I mean, physics is the process of understanding the universe that we're a part of, right? Physics is what you're describing. It's not a God. It's both. Like, God is not something separate from reality, right? That reality and God are one. They're the same thing. Like, and that's like a theological truism. Isaac Newton described it as such. That to me, this is like the great misunderstanding that has happened in the conversation. That atheists often describe God as a force that is separate from creation or separate from reality, and so will claim things like physics for themselves. Whereas theists will be like, physics is the process by which we understand creation, understand reality, and thereby understand the Creator and understand God. But it's all one and the same. Like, God is not external. Right? That we are part of the body of God. Just in the same way that a red blood cell is part of your body. But you can still individualize a red blood cell if you want. Right? Like, you can individualize every single part of you, but every single part of you is still you. And it's exactly the same thing for for reality or creation or God or whatever label you'd like to put on it, the universe, whatever you'd like to say about it, is that you are a part of that, and that part is you, and you can be individualized within it, but you're still part of it. And there's this impulse or worldview that has really taken hold that sort of separates us from nature, separates us. Like, we pretend like we're not part of it, that we are like an observer of it, but we're not part of it. Yeah, we are. We are part of it. And so if what I'm describing sounds like physics, okay. Do you know about Descartes? It's been a while since I've read some Descartes. Who gives a shit? Rene Descartes. Malibu Country. John, how would you respond to someone stating that socialism represents the ultimate extension of democratic collectivism, where the state claims ownership over individuals and their productive capacity? First of all, I think that's a misunderstanding of socialism, right? Like, the state claiming ownership over individuals and their productive capacity is fascism. Like, that's a pretty clean definition of fascism. That's Mussolini's definition of fascism. Like, the role of socialism and communism is to give workers control of the means of production. Like, that's the point. And communists, such as Lenin, argued that in order to achieve this, you have to go through a period of a dictatorship of the proletariat, where the proletariat controls the state for the benefit of the workers, with the ultimate goal of the means of production being in the hands of the workers. But if the goal is for the state to claim ownership over individuals and their productive capacity, that's fascism, baby. Like, that's just straight up fascism, like, in a very naked way. So, if someone is stating that socialism represents the ultimate extension of democratic collectivism, where the state claims ownership over individuals and their productive capacity, you might be talking to a national socialist. Malibu County continues, even in socialism, I have all the reasons to believe that gatekeepers, people in positions of even marginal authority, accumulate influence, power, and can monetize their positions in the workplace or organizations. Okay. Like, this is a continuous problem, right? Like, this is a continual problem. Is what you're describing is just corruption, right? And corruption is the issue. That how do we create a system that doesn't ultimately fall to corruption? And how do we make it so that people in positions of power don't simply leverage those positions of power for personal gain at the expense of the rest of the society? Right? It's a continuous problem. To which there is not exactly the cleanest solution, right? Like, you take a look at a place like China right now, and China's current leader, Xi Jinping, is on like an anti-corruption campaign. He was elected to the position he is in, the president, on a campaign of removing corruption from the CPC and Chinese society. And you can believe he's doing it or not, but people are being removed from positions of power at a pretty steady rate. And if you are a person in China who takes bribes, if you're an official in China who takes bribes, they fucking execute you. So, to me, it really comes down to, do you have a society that has the will to do it? And do you have a structure? Like, one of the real benefits, if you ask me, that the Chinese have going for them is that their system vets people. That's a big one, right? Like in America and in Western society, if you want to be the prime minister or the president or something, you just need to win a beauty contest, basically. They just cart you out in front of everybody, and everybody goes, that guy, right? And so you don't need to be like intelligent or smart or know anything or have done anything important. You just need to be able to convince enough people to vote for you. And that's how you end up with like Donald Trump. Donald Trump just walks out in front of everybody and is like, Lindsey Graham is gay, and everybody's like, ha, I love it, right? And so you just have the most manipulative people win elections, and they're not competent, they're not intelligent, they don't know anything, they don't even understand what the job really is. And so they're by definition corrupt, right? And that's like literally every congressperson, literally every senator, every judge, every mayor, every governor, the president. That's the system that they're operating in. You just need to be able to convince people to vote for you. So the people who end up winning are the most effective swindler. Compare that to the Chinese system, where you get voted into the National People's Congress, and then from there they begin a process of vetting you. You don't get voted in to be the president of China. You get voted into the National People's Congress. And as a junior member, the National People's Congress has a system that says, okay, cool, we're going to take you and put you in some village somewhere. And you're going to work with the people of that village to try to improve their material conditions and improve the quality of their life. And if you do it, then you are rewarded with more responsibility. And if you don't, you get shot out a cannon. Oh my God, with the goddamn nervous fanning of socialist states. Malibu country, police state is used to manage that corruption. I mean, that's not really what a police state is. Who controls the police state, if not others who engage in corruption at the point it tolerated it in power? Look at the possible corruption occurring. You realize you lie to yourself that when you pursue through building socialism is the same thing with building more equality. Like, I'm not really sure what your point is there, but like, I just get the sense that your whole point is like, it's not possible to avoid this kind of corruption when it clearly is. Like, you just have to do it. We live in a society where corruption has been baked in, right? Like, corruption is straight up baked in to the American system. The existence of super PACs is just an admission that the system runs on corruption. Content continues. Just, is it so hard to accept that socialist states will provide what you need and you'll have time to self-actualize? But maybe you don't have to be a difficult little baby about it. But my freedom, Cotton! My freedom! Like, I promise you, you'll still have blue jeans and rock and roll. Holy shit. Yeah, but what if you want 10 Bugattis? Come on. I want 10 Bugattis. Now it's socialism is when no labubus. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have 10 Bugatti right now. But I might. I just need to grind set, Cotton. If I just grind set and work hard, I'll get those 10 Bugattis. And it's my fault that I don't have those 10 Bugattis. I'm not a gaslit prole. Yeah, socialism isn't about equality so much. Yeah, Marx and Engels both criticize the concept. Yeah. I think Don Homer is hitting it correctly here. I feel like, Don, you've got a pretty good grasp on the things. I'd like to have a more serious conversation with you about, like, what do you, can you define what you've called yourself a fatalist several times? Can you give a more can you give a concise definition of what that is, just so that I understand where you're coming from a little bit more cleanly? JT writes, I know I don't have it now and won't ever, but no way am I living in China where I can't have 10 Bugattis. Anemone, I need every color. Yeah. Freestyle skate. The USA and the mentality of the citizens is so far behind, it's not even funny. Yeah, this country is riding on infrastructure and traditions from 100 years ago, and it shows in the society. Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody just today, in fact, online, a nice enough fellow who I think was like stuck in 1982. That we were talking about the electoral system, and it was just like, oh, you still think it's like 1982. Like, the Epstein class hasn't revealed itself. The Democrats and the Republicans are not allies. The liberals and the conservatives are not allies. You actually think like the lesser of two evils argument has some merit to it for some reason. And it's because you're still stuck in 1982. Like, world events haven't occurred at all. Like, the rise of super PACs has never happened. The dramatic shift in income inequality just didn't happen, right? The billionaire class, the Epstein class, didn't buy the political system. So you actually genuinely think that the Democrats and the Republicans are in opposition to one another somehow. And so it makes sense to be like, well, they're not perfect, but I can still vote for them because at least they're offering, 0.1% increase in public school spending over 30 years. It's like so obviously you're being managed. Like, you're so clearly being managed. But if you refuse to accept that your political system has been bought and paid for, then you can live in 1982, I guess. No, I'm not joking. It is my dream to own 10 Bugattis, which is more important than socialist policies that make it trivial for me to afford to live. 10 Bugattis. I need 10. Not 9. 10. Yeah, I know, content. I get really annoyed when people assume communism flattens the human experience. Yeah. There's a real, childish critique where it's like, we'll all wear the same clothing. Like, we'll all wear, white jumpers or something, and it'll be against the law to have human emotions. Hello, my name is Jonathan. Communism is great. As if there wasn't communist art, as if that didn't happen. Don Homer, it's just like a cooler way of saying a determinist. Well, can you define that then? I just want to have a better sense of where you're coming from. Because you seem well-read and well-informed is all. Like, you seem to understand the subject. And so I'm always interested in people who clearly understand the subject, but don't necessarily agree with it. Like, one of my real icons, one of the people I really value in my life is a fellow by the name of Chris Hedges. I think I've read everything he's ever written. And he's extremely well read on the works of Karl Marx, but he doesn't call himself a Marxist. He calls himself something anarchist. There's a type of anarchism that he gives himself, and it might just be Christian anarchism. Anyway, and that his opposition to Marx is simply that he thinks Marx gives humans too much credit. That he sees Marx's view of humanity as too light, whereas Chris Hedges' view of humanity is more dark and has a more Calvinist perspective. And if you're not familiar with Calvinism is very much like humans are animals. They need to be corralled. It's very Calvinist worldview. And while I don't necessarily agree with it, I tend to, I still respect it. Because at least one of the things I really respect is a person who states what they believe and defends it. I respect that more than anything. And it doesn't matter if I even agree with the thing that you're saying. If you are stating it with clarity and defending it, that by itself is respectable. Especially if your perspective is like not misogynist or something, right? Like if your worldview is like women should bow before my feet, and I'll defend it till the day I die, I'll be like, oh, you're a piece of shit. Go fuck yourself. No, I don't think it's market anarchism. I think it's going to kill me, but that's fine. No, Chris Hedges is like, his background is like, he graduated from Harvard Divinity College, right? Like his background is very theologically based. He did a lot of really interesting writing and had a lot of interesting conversations with the New Atheists. He had a really interesting conversation with Sam Harris, and he had a really interesting conversation with Christopher Hitchens. And in many ways, I thought Chris Hedges did a good job of exposing the New Atheists, not for their lack of theological knowledge, but for the fact that they fell for the same traps as their religious fundamentalist counterparts. That Christian fundamentalists would say we need to go to Iraq to overthrow Islam for the glory of Jesus, whereas the New Atheists were often saying we should go to Iraq to overthrow Islam because it's barbaric, and we know better, right? So it's the same outcome. And I thought Hedges did a really good work exposing that. JTV writes, I think I tend towards the view that humans, but I've been rejecting it since I tend to not see that in the actual socialist states, they don't have that darkness. Seems like a Western perspective. I also think there is like still a lot of puritanical values within Christianity, even amongst people I respect. Like, part of human darkness is that we like sex, right? And like enjoying sex or pornography is somehow seen as deviance, right? There's a deviancy that is part of it. And it's like, I don't know about that, my man. I don't know about that. Like, certainly when it interacts with capitalism, there's a lot of that. Yeah, humans are easily deceived. There's a great Mark Twain quote that I will always use, which is, it's easier to trick a man than convince a man he's been tricked. Content fatalism, it's dialectical materialism in eyeliner and black patches. Yeah, porn is inherently exploitive under capitalism, absolutely. But it's the intersection with capitalism, right? It's putting people in survival situations and making them sell themselves, right? It's just that instead of selling your labor to a Tim Hortons, you're selling your labor for sex, right? That the only reason why there's a distinction made at all is because there's a judgment on the type of labor that's being done. That's all. When the reality is that the dichotomy is exactly and precisely the same, right? Like a person working for a company making slogans, right, is just as exploited as somebody who is selling themselves for sex. Like, they're both exploited. It's just their skill set and their capabilities are different. And we judge one and not the other. Fatalism is the Cannibal Corpse doom metal genre of dialectical materialism. Amazing. You're making it sound very cool, I've got to tell you. Don Homer says, I kind of get that. I think Marx carried with him a lot of Enlightenment assumptions about rationalism, progress, things like that. Yeah, I don't really buy into a lot of that stuff. But redeterminism, the idea, belief that everything is a fixed outcome that comes from a set of initial conditions with no randomness, chance, or volition to take in another direction. And if you knew everything, you could predict the story of all action before it's taken with like 100% certainty. Okay. It's like a free will versus determinism argument. See, I take a on the free will conversation, and stop me if it's not relevant, but this is what's sort of triggered in my brain. I do think that humans have free will. I think that we have free will. I just don't think it matters as much as free will people think it does. That it's a variable in the mix that can mess with things, but not that much. That I tend to see things more your way. That there is less. We have less control of the situation than we like to think. It's the universe is a Rube Goldberg machine argument. I like that. The universe is a Rube Goldberg machine. Don Homer says, it's relevant. For me, the fundamental progressive belief is a rejection of free will, but that's a little idiosyncratic. The fundamental progressive belief is a rejection of free will. No, I don't think I get what you're saying there, dude. Anemone says, no, we don't have free will. Our conditions are determined by our environment, but we can change our environment. Right? Like, that's where things get kind of sticky. We can change our environment. Right? We can all get into a room and we can decide to change our environment. And we can have like huge organizations whose entire purpose is to change the environment for the better. Right? And we can do that. So if we acknowledge that it's the environment that determines human behavior, then we can have a discussion and make decisions about what environment we'd like to create to get what behavior we'd like to see. If we determine free will is true, or as false, we must continue on the same way. And will. Yeah. Man with a long last name, there are arguments against Laplace's demon. I don't know Laplace's demon at all, dude. Laplace. Laplace's demon. There is a limit on a planet with finite resources, it's true, which is why we've got to get to Mars. We got to get to Mars, and we got to start mining Mars, and we got to send all our industry into space. Right? We got to go to space, and we got to have space industry and start mining asteroids. Nilo writes, but it was only a matter of time until we learned we could do that, and then it became inevitable that we would do that, and so on, yeah. Don writes, like, to use an example, it is unprogressive and barbaric to look at somebody who grew up in the ghetto and say they should have used their free will to turn out better. Yeah, like, what I find that the free will advocates often do is they take free will and they put it at the very top. That on the enormously massive long list of variables that make your life, the free will advocates very often are like, free will! 99.999% of your existence is your free will. and everything else is just ancillary. And I'm like exactly the opposite of that. That it's like there's this huge chain of variables, some of which are very large, like very, very big. Like it matters pretty substantially if you are born blind or not. Like that's a pretty big variable, right? Like it matters pretty substantially if you're born to a family that beats the shit out of you every single day. Like these things matter. And those are big fucking variables. And then right at the very bottom of the list, at the very bottom of the list of variables that exist, there's this like little tiny note that says, yeah, you can do whatever. And that's it. Just go, yeah, you can do whatever. Like, you can. Like, here's a really personal example of what I'm talking about. This gets dark, but I'm in the mood to share something dark. Like, I have always lived with suicidal impulses, right? They've always existed within me from the very beginning. Well, not the very beginning, from like the moment of puberty. I've just had these suicidal impulses. And what I've come to understand about what those suicidal impulses are is it's me responding to my environment saying, hey, you should kill the man you are and become the man you should be. Kill this guy, become this. It's not pick up gun, shoot self in head, and leave reality. Like, that's like the most rudimentary version of it. And like the most extreme version of it, because it's so, there's a finality to it. But really, I'm like, I've always thought this. And I think it's part of the reason why I've always moved around and I've been very like, I explore reality so much, is because my feeling has always been, well, if you're willing to kill yourself, you should be willing to go to another city. Right? Like, if you're willing to pick up a gun and just shoot yourself, then you should be willing to face the possibility of homelessness. Like, just get there, and if you still want to shoot yourself, then shoot yourself. Right? And it's like, I can't escape certain realities. I can't escape certain things. Like, I am a straight white man. It's just an inescapable reality, and that affords me benefits in the society and in reality as I connect to it. But I do have the choice to just like, I could like stand up right now, walk outside, and just walk in a direction. I could do that. Right? Like right now, the impulse that I'm following in this regard is that I want to go to China. So I'm probably going to visit China first. And if that goes well, I'll probably move there. Because like this place is pretty shitty. Like, and getting shittier by the day. And I look at China and I'm like, oh, there's a place that actually gives a shit. Holy shit, it's a place that gives a shit. I would really love to, like, I've never lived in a place that actually gave a shit. Right? Like, when I first came into reality, I'm like, oh yeah, everyone gives a shit. And then you steadily realize that nobody gives a shit. And then you go through a phase of like, I guess nobody gives a shit. Right? And that's very depressing, and you have all that kind of stuff. And now it's like, we're reaching a point where it's like, oh, nobody gives a shit. Like, nobody gives a shit. And then I look at a country like China, and I'm like, well, they clearly give a shit. Like, they clearly give a shit. And so it'd be really nice to just be in a place that's like, yeah, we give a shit. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to be like, oh, this is what it's like to be in a place that actually gives a shit. Amazing. Content says, I mean, we clearly can choose to do things, but also it's like making a choice while in a boxing ring or a choice while on a train. Free will exists. Yeah, we just aren't omnipotent. Yeah. Like, our choices don't matter all that much, really. Like, they're especially compared to the reality we exist in. Like, When you listen to like hacks like Ben Shapiro talk about it, he talks about it like it's like, I'm where I'm at because of all the smart choices I made. And it's like, you were born hyper rich. And like, you're basically just a bigot talking to other bigots. Like, yeah, bigotry is popular, my man. Who could put that together? And Emily says, well, when you go into a higher dimensions, you see that time is just another dimension. That's why it's called space-time. I don't know why that made me think of Space Jam, but it definitely did. John, what is my response to this statement? Socialism is not merely as an economic system, but as part of a broader egalitarian ideology that seeks to impose uniformity on society. That sounds like capitalist propaganda. The drive towards equality required coercive state power that invariably destroys the pluralism and voluntary association that characterizes free society. Yeah, that just sounds like capitalist propaganda. Just the very standard, like, you won't have any freedom under socialism. There is a unithink, a singular thought that needs to happen. Meanwhile, when you actually look at societies that have pursued the socialist path or the communist path, they're highly plural. Like, Russia is a really great example of this. The Soviet Union had, 156 ethnic groups? Like, the idea that there's, this uni-thought that needs to happen under socialist states is capitalist propaganda. And embarrassing capitalist propaganda. Just go look at Soviet art. Like, go look at Soviet art. Just go do it. Don Homer writes, if it were the case that people would be governed by free will, it would be impossible to even do sociology. Like, how can you generalize anything about humans if they can just do anything they want? It doesn't really make sense. And I think it's because free will is not as impactful as all that. Like this is the problem that I have with the conversation, is that there's a false dichotomy that's in the conversation, which is that either free will is all-encompassingly everything that can possibly be all things, or nothing. And it's like, I don't agree with that. I think it's a false dichotomy. That free will exists, it's just not as important as all that. Like, you can make choices to the degree that you're able, but that there are much larger forces at play. Right? Like, I can't make the choice to fly. Right? I am limited. Right? I can't choose to be a millionaire. Right? I'm limited. Like, maybe I could try to pursue that if I see that as a goal, but it's far more likely that it won't happen. And so you can make more generalized statements because there are forces that are larger than your free will. Like, a lot larger. Like, a lot larger. Right? Like, to be sort of reductive about it, you can make the generalized statement that if you take a human and throw them in the middle of the ocean, they will drown. Right? They will, and I don't care. I don't care if they're Michael Phelps or a guy who is 500 pounds sitting on the couch, right? What free will would they have? Both of them are going to make the choice to try to not die, and both of them will. Michael Phelps might last a little longer. Ditto, good to see you. We are winning the war so bigly. We are winning the war so bigly, folks. Operation Epstein Fury is a huge success. Also, it's illegal to film the damage in Tel Aviv, and the oil's going to run out, but who needs that? Yeah. You nailed it, dude. You nailed it. Operation Epic Fury? I haven't talked about that. It's just so obvious that we're led by morons. Like, just baby-brained 4chan idiots. Operation Epic Fury? Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. When they declared this Operation Epic Fury, every single member of the military should have just fucking grabbed Pete Hegseth and thrown him into the ocean. Like, shut up. You want to be taken seriously. Like, that's the best part, is that Pete Hegseth is so desperate to be taken seriously. He wants to be such a big boy. So clearly and obviously he wants to be taken seriously. And then he names the Operation Epic Fury. Dude, that would be lame in like a parody of a war in a video game. That if I was playing a video game and it was so obviously like some like parodied version of a general being like, well, troops, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna destroy those people out in their world. We gotta man up and pack up because we're facing Operation Epic Fury. I'd be like, that's stupid. You can't do better than Operation Epic Fury, right? Operation Eagle Thunder, Operation Freedom Spawn, Operation Lightning Cougar. Like, you sound like an idiot. You just sound like a moron. Like the name is more stupid than a parody that would make fun of how stupid you are. Right? Like, if the South Park guys were to try to make fun of you, they would just call it Operation Epic Fury. It's like a Chuck Norris title. Don't you disparage the good name of Chuck Norris like that? How dare you? How dare you? Chuck Norris would never debase himself with Operation Epic Fury. Ever. How dare you? Glace on back, baby, with a strong first time chat. 4 statements, all caps. Fuck. Strong first comment. Malibu writes, USSR tried to build a new man through socialist morality. There existed morality policing. It was enforced by the Communist Party through censorship, peer pressure, fear of being viewed in a bad light by acquaintances and secret polices. Yeah, because they were fighting Nazis, dude. Like, this is what I love about the people who stand up and criticize the Soviet Union. It's my absolute favorite. I adore it. Because it's, like, so charming. It's like, can you believe that they had secret police and thought policing and morality policing? It's like, yes, I can. I bet they did. Because you know who they were fighting against? Literal Nazis. Literal Nazis. Who would come into your community and try to take over your shit so that they could round up Jews and put them in churches and light them on fire. Like, yeah, I bet they did, bud. Oh, it's a terrible thing watching people create a set of morality to try to defeat the Nazis. It's just this great. I see it so often. It's just incredibly common. Like, you'll never believe what the Soviets did during World War II. Like, yeah, I will. I'll absolutely believe it, and I bet they did. Like, it's just this, like, extremely common omission that we're just supposed to omit the Nazis. Just the Nazis don't exist. We're just not supposed to. We're supposed. It's like it's like you watched a horror film, right? It's like you watched like a Friday the 13th film with Jason Voorhees with his fucking machete and his hockey mask going around slaughtering people. But the entire time you're commenting on the people running around screaming as if Jason Voorhees doesn't exist. You're just like, wow, that lady's crazy. She's just running around screaming her head off. Calm down, lady. Jeez Louise. Yeah, no wonder people are looking at you so strangely, acting like a crazy person like that. Like, yeah, bro. I bet she is. Like, I bet she is. There's like a zombie with a machete slaughtering her friends. I bet she's going to do a lot of stuff. Like, it'd be like you watch her like pick up a shotgun and shoot it at Jason Voorhees, but you've eliminated Jason Voorhees, so you're like, she can't discharge a rifle in the middle of a town like that. She's not using proper firearms safety. Like, that's what these people sound like to me. When people who start criticizing the Soviet Union while omitting the Nazis, that's what you sound like to me. Like, oh, I can't believe that they were committing to censorship. I can. I bet they did. I absolutely bet they did. Like, Joseph Goebbels was an incredibly powerful propagandist. He was so influential and so powerful that he was one of the few Nazis that actually got hung at the Hague for it. Yeah, I bet they did. I absolutely bet they did. But we're all just supposed to ignore that, right? Jason Voorhees doesn't exist. She's just a crazy bitch. Man with long last name. We already have Operation High Jump, Operation Paperclip, Operation Prosperity Guardian, Operation Cast Lead, Operation Protective Edge. Yeah, but all of those sound like interesting, right? Like, what's Operation High Jump? Operation Paperclip. Operation Prosperity Guardian is kind of lame. Operation Prosperity Guardian. Like it, like Operation Mockingbird, right? Like it when it's like Operation Word and it's kind of mysterious, right? It's when you're using Operation Word and it's obvious that you're trying to propagandize with it. You're trying to convince me of something with it. Like, Operation Mockingbird is like, what is that? And then you find out that it's like the CIA taking over journalism and using journalists as CIA assets. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, so Operation Mockingbird, right? Like, so it kind of makes sense. Like, there's a connection there. But they're not trying to sell me something like it's a product. Whereas stuff like Prosperity Guardian or Epic Fury, it's so obvious that they're trying to sell me an idea. Operation Epic Fury. Screeching eagle, cowboy hat, riding the nuke. Yeehaw! Yeehaw! Operation Freedom. Operation Kick-Ass. Don't forget Operation Deep Throat. How could I? How could I forget? How could I forget? Freestyle Skate. I believe that casualties from the U.S.-Israeli side are being hidden. Yes, I should say so. Like, I don't think that you have to say I believe that. Like, yeah, obviously. The U.S. And Israel don't want anybody to know anything about this war. Literally, Israel is locking people up for 5 years for taking photos and sending it anywhere. Like, it's pretty clear that that Israel is getting pounded. Like, how could it not be getting pounded? The amount of U.S. military sites that have been hit. The idea that there's only like 7 dead soldiers. Fuck you. Like, that's so baby-brained. It's ridiculous. Like, it's insulting. It's insulting to think that they can just be like, yeah, they killed only 7 of us. Yep, 7. And there are people who are like, 7? Oh, that doesn't sound so bad. Dope. Shut up. It's like when they said, like, oh yeah, 3 fighter jets went down through friendly fire. Yeah, friendly fire is what did it. Yep. Because they think you're stupid. Because they just think you're a stupid person who's just going to be like, whoa, what a bunch of clumsy dumsies. Doopsie-do. It's not the fact that they went in there with stupid intelligence because they're a bunch of morons and their fighter jets got shot down with equipment that they were like, oh, Iran's got that? Duh! Like, just listen to the way these guys talk about Iran. Just listen to the way they talk about it. They're like, they have no fucking idea what's happening in Iran. And they're too stupid to give a shit. Because to them, this is just another way to do a pump and dump schemes. Like, this is the thing that I'm really trying to formulate. What makes this war so pathetic? And it's so obvious. Watch Donald Trump. Watch Donald Trump talk about the war. He so obviously doesn't care. Like, he so obviously doesn't care. He's not energized by it. He's not excited by it. He's not interested by it. Because the war is just a method for him to do more pump and dump schemes. That's it. It's just a way to do more pump and dump schemes. That's it. Well, if we do this, then the price will go here, and then we'll buy here, and then we'll go down here, and then we'll go, and it'll go, and then we'll down. And the entire stock market is just a series of pump and dump schemes now. And because he's the president, he can actually pump and dump the whole thing just by decisions he makes. So he doesn't give, and he doesn't give a fuck that his whole thing is that at the end of this, I'll have $100 billion, and I'll be the richest person, and I'll be able to. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care. Yeah, I'll just buy a bunch of Raytheon stock, start a war, bomb the shit out of everything. Raytheon stock will go through the roof, like Omnicidal Tendencies told us at the beginning of it. And then right when I'm about to back away and end the fucking thing, right, I'll sell all my stock, and then the price will go down, and I'll have made a pretty penny, because I'm the fucking president, and I can do that. And that's, in my view, that's what this whole thing is about. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about America. He doesn't give a fuck about the dollar. He doesn't give a fuck about the changing landscape. He doesn't give a fuck about any of that. You know what Donald Trump gives a fuck about? Donald Trump. And so if he can do things in order to pump and dump you, he will, over and over and over and over again. And if that means he's got to bomb schools, and if that means he needs to commit a genocide in the Middle East, and if that means he needs to, like, send more children to Jeffrey Epstein's rape island, he will. Like, it's that pathetic. It's that pathetic. He wants money for himself. End of story. Operation Big Pee-Pee. Exactly. Well, guys, we've reached the end of this one. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This was a nice one. I didn't really have to ban anybody. And it doesn't matter. All right. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.